results of scientific research by utilizing a holistic well-being for everyone, addressing values, concerns, and needs with reliable science-based information. Extension programs help people lead healthier lives. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
You are listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZW LP Conroe and 106.
Live from Montgomery County, this is Restore Affordable Water. I am your host, Simon Cicada, president of Restore Affordable Water. My co-host is Mike Thornhill. How you doing, Mike?
Good, Simon. Good to be here again.
Great to have you again. We have a very special guest with us today. His name is Mike Stecker. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing great, other than my high water bills.
We're going to get to that. Well, we're here to talk about water, as Mike mentioned, and everything about water in Montgomery County. There's a lot of people talking about why their water bills have doubled, and we have the answers, or most of the answers, I'd say. And I think we need to do a recap from last month's show on who's on first and who did what and how all this happened. And I want to start off by reading something that will kind of give you some insight on how our water bills doubled. We all know that Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District was created in 2001, and it was exempt from conflicts of interest. When I tell people that, they say, wait a minute, how can that be? But that's true. This was House Bill 2362 in the 2001 legislature, and it says, Section 36.058 of the Water Code relating to conflicts of interest does not apply to the district. And I think all of us in Montgomery County should have known then what was coming, but we were all busy with our lives, and it kind of slipped by and been downhill from there. So the good news is there's an election coming in November 6th of this year. For the first time in almost 19 years, Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District will be elected by the people of Montgomery County. So that's a good thing. People get to have a say. Been appointed board, special interests, not anymore. It's up to the people of Montgomery County to take their water back. So, Mike, when we were talking last month, we talked about San Jacinto River Authority and Lone Star and their relationships, and they sit on each other's board. We were talking about water in the aquifer and how much water's in the aquifer. We're limited to 64,000 acre feet of pumpage in Montgomery County. How much water is that?
64,000 acre feet is it's a fraction. it's not even a drop in the bucket in terms of the water that's in the aquifer. 64,000 acre feet, if it were used in a year, is about 60 million gallons a day, which is probably a little bit more than what Conroe and the Woodlands use in a year.
And the 64,000 acre feet is a pumping limit instituted by Lone Star Groundwater.
That's correct. It's what they call a sustainable level of usage, sustainable level of pumping, and it's based on what they defined as the recharge to the aquifer, as what they call the Gulf Coast aquifer. There are really three aquifers in the Gulf Coast aquifer system. And it is the recharge that happens within the boundaries of the 697,000 square miles of the
county.
Of the county, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yes. Acres, I guess, not square miles. Acres.
Yeah. 697,000 acres in Montgomery County.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we've learned is there's 180 million acre feet of groundwater just underneath Montgomery County.
Just under Montgomery County.
Just
Correct.
Underneath us. And we're limited to 64,000 acre feet. And this is a Lone Star limit. That's 0.0003% or something like that of the aquifer. It's virtually nothing.
Nothing. That's right.
Yeah. And so when people say my water bill doubled and the water company did this, the water company is the one that sends me the bill and they get the money. That's not really what happens, is it?
That's right. The limitation came up very quickly, very suddenly.
It was a lot of us like to say that we were forced into it. I think the San Jacinto River Authority and Lone Star say we all volunteered. And let me introduce our guest here. His name is Mike Stecker. He's a longtime Conroe resident. He's been a developer in the Conroe area for a long time, and is also in the utility business. And so maybe the most obvious question is, did you volunteer to sign up with the San Jacinto River Authority?
Well, I didn't volunteer. It was like a gun to the head. I didn't have to volunteer. I didn't have to sign anything. I could just pay a $10,000 a day fine if I decided not to sign a GRP, a groundwater reduction plan. It just so happened that San Jacinto River Authority just happened to have one on that day, and it just so happened to fit what turns out to be about 80% of the large volume groundwater users' criteria. Just amazing how tailor fit that plan was. Of course, it doesn't hurt that Jace Houston, who is the head of San Jacinto River Authority, is also on the Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District Board.
And I believe San Jacinto River Authority owns the water in Lake Conroe. They also own the wells in the Woodlands. Maybe that has something to do with the conflicts of interest exemption.
That, and they have the management contracts for the mud districts in the Woodlands. So you can see a giant bureaucracy growing from its infancy to the 3-story Taj Mahal they have out there now. That particular entity sits around with $54 million in their bank account today, ever growing.
And so that seems to be a big point of contention in Montgomery County. There's one side of the argument that says water providers, they volunteered. They needed water and they were running out of water. That's the Lone Star and San Jacinto River Authority line, that water providers came to them. The other story, I think, is the more prevalent story, is nobody went to the San Jacinto River Authority and Lone Star and asked for anything. Lone Star implemented this pumping limit, and you had a choice. You could pay $10,000 per day fine, which really isn't much of a choice. I think you're probably out of business. So you can go out of business. Maybe that was your option. You can go out of business, or you can be forced to sign the San Jacinto River Authority plan, whereby they force you to tax your customers through the water bill. Is that?
That's correct. And that is part of the problem, was that we trusted them to do the right thing. And then the turning point for me in one particular day was, I used to go to those Lone Star meetings, was actually on a committee at one time for conserving water. But so I'm sitting there, and Reed Eichelberg, the former head of the San Jacinto River Authority, where the meeting's over and they're congratulated everybody for a job well done because the bonds just got passed and they were moving along. And I'm over just as gleeful as everyone else, thinking, they're telling us we're running out of water. And so, I feed my family with the utility company. So with that in mind, then I'm all for it, because the last thing I want to do is run out of water. If I can't sell water, I'm just out of business. So everybody's congratulating each other. Everybody's starting to stand up. And about that time, Reed Eichelberg says, "Oh, wait, we forgot to thank this particular bank." And I want to say the bank's name. It's a local bank here. They know who they are. and the problem is not so much that bank, because any bank, you might say, would have done it if they'd been in that same position. That's why there are conflicts of interest rules for all entities. Of course, as Simon just pointed out, save and except for this particular entity.
So there's a bank involved in this.
Well, yeah, there's a bank involved, and of course, just so happened to be the bank president sat on the Lone Star board. One of his bank directors is also on the Lone Star board. One of the bank's directors is also on the River Authority board. So, and yet the whole time they're all voting for these good things for Montgomery County.
So when Mr. Eichelberg was thanking the bank, he is thanking the bank for helping finance this deal. Is that what he's saying?
That's my understanding. That's correct. And that's when I call it the hair on the back of my neck stood up for the first time. and I started really paying attention to what they were doing because it's painfully obvious. I'm also a real estate developer, and just think if I was on the board and they're going to buy some land, but they're going to buy it from me. So you bet I'm voting yes. Okay. I had to tell you that. I like to think I was higher and better person than that. But the real truth is I'd probably vote yes if they'd allow me to vote yes. So the system was broken from the very beginning. Just way too much conflicts of interest. And anytime somebody has to invoke into the enabling legislation, specifically saying that there's not any conflicts of interest, then there's obviously already some conflicts of interest. So with that in mind, then that's what started me on the rabbit trail of trying to figure out what the real science and the real math was here. Because I'll say it again, nobody wants to run out of water, but they sold fear. They run around like Chicken Little with the skies falling, saying we've got too many straws in the ground and we're sucking it all out. And common sense says, well, that could happen, except that's not what happens.
Yeah, and I think I think we were told that by a lot of different agencies, maybe that did have their hands in the cookie jar, and hydrology is a little bit complicated. And as we figured out later on, we have more water than we'll ever use in our children's lifetime here in Montgomery County. And so I've always thought as a conflict of interest exemption had a lot to do with the two agencies sitting on each other's agencies. And so there were some other, call it entities involved, hands in the cookie jar here that we haven't discussed before. And we're going to go to commercial break here in just a minute, but we'll get into that after the break. But I want to remind everybody, this is Restore Affordable Water. Our goal is to reduce your water bill. We want to bring accountability and transparency to the Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District. We're going to be endorsing a slate of candidates running for the board coming up soon. And we want everybody to get out and vote in November. Take your water back. We'll be right back.
Remember to download the Lone Star Community Radio app from your Google Play Apple Store. Bring Montgomery County's community radio with you anywhere with your smartphone or tablet. If you are in the Conroe area, tune in on FM 104.5, 106.1. If you are on your computer, bookmark irlonestar.com as your internet radio station. Lone Star Community Radio, broadcasting 24/7 from the heart of downtown Conroe, Texas.
Lone Star Boxer Rescue is a nonprofit organization serving Montgomery County and surrounding areas, dedicated to the health and well-being of the boxer breed. Lone Star Boxer Rescue is run and managed 100% by volunteers since 1999. Our main objective is to rescue, rehabilitate, and rehome boxers that come to us from many sources, including local animal shelters, owner surrenders, and strays. For more information about Lone Star Boxer Rescue, visit our website at lsbr.org.
Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show, with monthly and weekly slots available in Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776 to take your first step into the radio world.
We are back live from Montgomery County, Restore Affordable Water. We are talking about water issues here in Montgomery County. We're talking about aquifers and conflicts of interest and Lone Star and the San Jacinto River Authority. And I have a special guest here named Mike Stecker, longtime Conroe resident, involved in the water battle here in Montgomery County. And Mike Thornhill, co-host to the hydrogeologists. I always get that wrong. Hydrogeologists who can help us understand really if we're running out of water. I think a lot of us probably get scared when we hear people that we respect say we're running out of water. We don't do X, we're going to run out of water. Nobody wants to run out of water. You don't have to be a utility company to not want to run out of water. And so I think back maybe 10 years ago, and I think there was a lot of fear in this community. There were a lot of people who were saying we're going to run out of water if we don't do this. And if you don't do it, we're going to fine you $10,000 per day per violation. And well, that probably puts everybody out of business. So here we are. Lone Star implements a pumping limit of 64,000 acre feet. And they say on this date, thou shalt not use more than 64,000 acre feet of water a year. And so what choice did water providers have in Montgomery County?
Little to none.
Well, you could have imported it from another county, right?
Well, except no, not really. And the reason that's important is that, like a lot of things they have done, they wrote the rules to where, let's just assume for a moment that we needed water. And let me make myself really clear. We don't need water to be imported. We're not running out of water. The Texas Water Development Board at recent depositions and hearings for this particular cause we're in said that Montgomery County has used virtually no part of the aquifer. That's the Texas Water Development Board. That's not me. That's not them.
Mr. Thornhill, you agree with that?
Absolutely. 100%. The aquifer's still full.
So the aquifer's full in Montgomery County.
Absolutely.
Texas Water Development Board said it's full?
Yes.
It's actually
under oath.
Yes.
So they were under oath when they said that.
Yes.
And you've looked at the aquifer, Mr. Thornhill, and do you agree with that?
Absolutely. In fact, the Texas Water Development Board in 2016 came out with a report on aquifers in Texas and basically said that there is about 130,000 acre feet, I believe, of rejected recharge in Montgomery County.
What does that mean?
I mean, it's water that would get into the aquifer if it could, but the aquifer is too full, so it comes out in the outcrop areas as seeps and sweeps and springs, and a lot of it's lost to evapotranspiration, which is what the trees and plants take up.
And so I know people can't see what I'm doing out in the world, but if I have this cup here on the desk and it's full, literally you can't put any more water in it. Our aquifer is like a full cup of water, and any more water you try to pour in it spills on the table.
That's right. Just can't come in there.
And that's how our aquifer behaves.
That's right.
Wow.
So if you use some of that water in your glass, by the way, then the aquifer would then refill itself by recharge. And that's an important part of it.
So you're saying it can't recharge unless we take some water out.
That's right. You have to take water out. It's like a bathtub. Just imagine that. When you let the water out of the bathtub and you turn the water on, it fills the bathtub back out. When you have the water full in the bathtub and you turn the water on, it'll run over the side. Better shut it off. So it works just like that. But back to what I was saying a minute ago about importing water. Even if we assumed we might need to import some water in the far distant future, which no number says we are, no math, then what the Lone Star did was they wrote a very specific rule that said, and this is what's important about this, is this just goes to the point of the $10,000 a day fine and the fact that you're not allowed to import water because that would mess up our plan with the River Authority.
Competition.
Well, it'd be competition, and the River Authority lawyer couldn't make his $4 million fee for selling bonds. So,
now we have some other people with their hands in the kitchen.
Well, we do. I mean, that and all the consultants in the world are like hogs at the trough. Every time there's a public offering of money, guess who shows up? All the engineers and consultants and lawyers, and what part of that pie can they get? Now, don't get me wrong. It's like the bank I mentioned earlier. It's human nature. It's one or more of the 7 deadly sins, and all we can do is assume that we're all guilty of that. Okay, but
So how much debt? How much money have we spent?
well, I'm not quite sure, but the big number is we spent $560 million. I want to say that it was a $500 million project that normally when you do real estate developments and all the other construction world, you have your contingency built in. So I'm assuming that the $500 million had a 10% contingency built in. Well, it turns out it cost $560 million. So I guess they missed it by 20% versus 10%. So it's just,
And with interest, I've heard numbers of almost $1 billion.
oh, no doubt.
Principal and interest, almost $1 billion. And now it appears aquifer's full. There was simply no need. In fact, recently, Lone Star, in an administrative process, they stood up and said, we were wrong, didn't they? The 64,000 acre feet that created all of these lawsuits and doubling of water bills and $1 billion worth of debt, Lone Star stood up on the courthouse steps and said, that number's not right.
Well, yeah, let me quickly explain that. What happened was they have what they call as a SOA hearing, State Office of Administrative Hearing, to see if the DFCs, the desired future conditions, are technically correct or not and meet them and meet the law. So Lone Star is fighting us all for 2 years. Lone Star spent, get this, folks, now listen carefully. Lone Star spent $715,000 a year money saying they're right.
In addition to the $1 billion, this is different now.
Oh, no, this is just Lone Star. This has nothing to do with the River Authority and the $560 million. This is just that Lone Star fee you pay every month. And that they cry about the reason why they're having to go up is because of lawsuits.
And this is taxpayer dollars.
It's ratepayer dollars.
Ratepayer dollars.
Yeah. So, which is virtually all taxpayers are on one system or another. So therefore it is taxpayers indirectly. So they spend $715,000 and we get to the 11th hour. I mean, 2 days before the hearing. And all the judge has to do is to say, these rules that Lone Star has are reasonable or unreasonable. Okay. And if they're unreasonable, why? Well, they get right up to the lick log, if you will. And next thing you know, they're saying, you know what, we'd like to negotiate with y'all. Well, why? Because we will agree that our rules are unreasonable.
Wow.
$715,000 of your money, 2 years, and they get right up to the 11th hour and they don't want to go to court. They don't want to go to court because they knew they were wrong all along. I guess they thought they were going to bluff us out.
So after 17 years of creating rules and regulations and really triggering $1 billion worth of debt on the backs of people's water bill in Montgomery County, then another $715,000. And that's just one side. There's the city of Conroe's side. There's the city of Magnolia who was fighting them. There are a lot of other water providers. I don't know what everyone else spent. So we're around $1 billion. And Lone Star said, we're wrong.
We're wrong.
Wow.
Wow. No kidding. And
That's just amazing.
It is just wrong. Again, it's OPM. It's other people's money. And you've got a law firm in sync with some other bureaucrats who want to have this great program. You know that old saying, we're the government and we're here to help you. Okay.
Here's your bill.
Yeah. Yeah. Trust me. Well, of course, that's not the case. We got off center a minute ago. One of the rules was that let's just assume that you had a water crisis in Montgomery County, and we said, we need to go get water somewhere else. And they precluded us from having water from somewhere else. We can't ship it off from Liberty County, etc. They bar us in their rules, which made us go sign the River Authority deal. Well, in all of this $715,000, one of the concessions they did was, we agree that we never had the right to bar you from importing water. And so all along, again, we don't need the water, but assuming we did, they led us down the path because they made certain rules that kept it from being cost effective. So assuming we needed water, we possibly could have gotten water from Liberty and surrounding counties and imported it in at roughly 50 to 60% of the cost of what this is. Again, we didn't need the water. The aquifer is virtually unchanged after 100 years of pumping it. We know we're in a fast growth thing, so let's everybody do the math and let's all do the science. And speaking of science, that was always lacking in this whole thing. It was always, let's back into the engineering number we need in order to make it work. And
I think we'll get into maybe the I'm going to call it the lack of science and math here when we come back, because the 64,000 acre feet has always been a suspicious number, and maybe it was reverse engineered. How'd they come up with that? But we'll come back to that after the break. Again, this is Restore Affordable Water. We are here in Montgomery County talking about all water issues, and we want everyone to know you can go to our website, restoreaffordablewater.com. You can like us on Facebook. Tell us your story. We want to hear how these water bills are affecting your lives, and we'll be right back.
Did you know that there are over 153 million orphans in the world today? The sad reality is 99% of those kids will likely never be adopted. CoreLove is an organization right here in Conroe that takes care of orphan children in Haiti, Honduras, and India. We bring the love of Jesus by providing their 6 basic needs of clean water, proper food, healthcare, education, job skills, and a loving home. Visit corelove.org. That's CORELUV.org. Will you help defend the orphan?
Our talk shows and music shows are looking for sponsors. Want to expand your brand awareness? Reach the hyper-local audience in Montgomery County? Lone Star Community Radio sponsorships accomplish this. Want to see our stats and rates? Check out irlonestar.com/sponsor for more information. Or call in and leave us a message at 936-647-3776.
Listen in Mondays at noon to hear Conroe news from local nonprofits, businesses, upcoming events, Conroe Park events, news stories, and information that matters to you with your host, Margie Taylor of Taylorized PR. For more information about being a guest, visit irlonestar.com/Conroe Culture.
We are back live in Montgomery County with Restore Affordable Water. We are talking about water issues and water bills and conflicts of interest with Lone Star, Groundwater Conservation District, and the San Jacinto River Authority. And I think one of the points that we want to make here is the people, the end user. They seem to be the ones getting hurt. We're hearing about $1 billion worth of debt, legal fights, appeals to the jurisdiction. Who's paying all these bills?
The consumer.
Consumers paying all of them.
Paying every bit of it.
Every bit of it. Stuck on the back of consumers for essentially no reason. It appears basically no reason. The aquifer's full. So if I'm a consumer and I get a water bill every month and it has, I don't know, San Jacinto River Authority fee, Lone Star fee, pass-through fee on it, why do I care?
Well, you need to look at that bill very carefully because approximately half of your water bill every month is the new, in the last few years, Lone Star and San Jacinto River Authority fees that we are by law allowed to simply pass through to you as a consumer. We do the bookkeeping basically, and we just pass it on to you. So when you look at that and it's an extra $60 to $100 a month, whatever it is, unless of course you irrigate, please don't irrigate, then you're looking at maybe as much as $100 to $200 a month, just their fee.
So you're a water provider, and the San Jacinto River Authority sends you a bill based on how much water you pump. Is that right?
Yes.
And then you're gonna calculate. You're gonna send your customer a bill based on how much water they use, and that's supposed to cover the money that you got to send back to the San Jacinto River Authority. So you're basically collecting money for the San Jacinto River Authority and Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District.
That's correct. That's what I do.
You don't make any money off of this?
No, we don't make any money off of it. It's just a pass through.
Nothing.
All
goes. So you're the middleman.
Right.
Water providers are the middle person in the deal, just forced to collect the River Authority and Lone Star's fees from their customers.
That's right. And of course, we're the guy who went out there and back 20, 25 years ago or whenever, who over the years spent millions of dollars on capital improvements to serve a particular area. And here comes these Johnny-come-latelys who don't do anything, because a lot of the people, in fact, well over 50% of the people, don't actually get the water. They just end up paying the fee to offset those that do. Again, it's all tailor fitted. It's all written up really nice and proper and got a little bow ribbon around it. It's perfect for them. It's not so perfect for the consumer, but it's really perfect for them.
And the magic number was 64,000 acre feet that really triggered a lot of this.
Well, they had to come up with a number in order to make the math work. And they just simply said, what time is it? Well, it's 3:30 on a Friday afternoon. Well, great. How many acre feet of water are we using every year? 64,000 acre feet. Good. That's our number. So now let's go do the math and back into it. And voila, guess what happened?
So there was some reverse engineering going on.
That's being nice about it. That's right. That's what that is.
So, Mike, we've heard all kinds of stories about the 64,000 acre feet and where it came from and how they came up with it. And there are people that believe that there is a study out there that proves the 64,000 acre feet should be our pumping limit. Have you ever seen a study like that?
There is no scientific study that says there's 64,000 acre feet of recharge in Montgomery County. And even if there were, that's not how the aquifer works anyway. Just managing an aquifer based on one county when the aquifer covers 20 something counties is just not a good way to manage it anyway. But no, there is no scientific study. There's an administrative document as where the 64,000 acre feet, they linked it back to the claim of 1.1 inches of recharge throughout Montgomery County, 600 acres.
So it really wasn't a hydrological study. It was I'm going to call it a back of the napkin math. They have the acreage of Montgomery County, 697,000 acres. They chose a 1.1 inches of recharge, basically saying that 1.1 inches of rain is going to get into the aquifer, and that equals 64,000 acre feet. Is that right?
That's exactly what they say. Now, they actually commissioned, the Lone Star District commissioned USGS to do a recharge study, and it finally came out in, I think, 2013, and it said you can't use these averages for recharge, and they never said 64,000 acre feet ever.
So who's this now? What organization?
The USGS, the United States Geological Survey,
and that came out when?
2013.
And so in 2013, the federal government came back to Lone Star and said, "Can't use those numbers."
They said you shouldn't use those numbers.
Shouldn't use those numbers.
That's right.
Did they tell them what numbers to use?
No, they did not.
And is there a range that they should be using?
I think, again, it's not a matter of that's not really how the aquifer works.
Okay.
And so there's really not there was a range of recharge at specific sites, but it's not a matter of average recharge. That's not how you determine groundwater availability.
And so USGS doesn't really have a dog in the fight. They're not on either side of this. I don't think the Texas Water Development Board is the state agency, probably not on either side of this. Those two state agencies seem to disagree with Lone Star and the San Jacinto River Authority.
That's correct. In fact, for the management plan approval that Lone Star is required to do every 5 years, they had the Texas Water Development Board run the groundwater availability model to try to determine how much recharge there is. Now, I will say this, that model's not great at determining recharge, but the calculation from the model that they returned to Lone Star said there's less than 40,000 acre feet of recharge in Montgomery County.
Okay.
So nowhere does 64,000 acre feet come up scientifically.
Where did that number first appear? Because that seems to be something that's a sore spot here. Is that 64,000 acre feet? Mike says it was.
Timing.
They said, what time is it and how much water are we using? So that's what we're going to limit it to. When did that number first appear?
The first account that I've seen was in the 2003 management plan for Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District.
Wow, 2003?
Yes, they were formed in 2001. They have to implement a management plan and then form their rules. And so it was their very first management plan, and that number was in there. Were there any studies done prior to that? Right or wrong, were there any studies? There's no study cited or referenced that forms the basis of the 64,000 acre feet.
So prior to any studies, there was a 64,000 acre feet number thrown out there. And then later on in the process, it appears we have Texas Water Development Board saying aquifer's full. We have USGS saying don't use those numbers. And what happened?
They used them anyway.
Yes.
It made their math work. It made their bureaucracy grow, is what it did.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Look, I always have an analogy where they had multiple reasons in theory to do this program, and they'll tell you that there was 4 basic reasons, and I don't think we have enough time for me to go in it, but I'm just going to describe it as Lone Star and River Authority sitting up on top of a stool, and that stool has 4 legs. And those 4 legs are not made of steel. Those legs are made of wood. And now they've taken it outside and other people looking at it and it's subjected to the weather. Well, guess what? They didn't do enough to protect those legs. And those legs weren't correct anyway. Those legs are rotting out from underneath them and they're about to fall down because of it. One of those legs has to do with mom and pop wells. Oh, we're running out of water in the upper aquifer and mom and pop wells are going to go dry and we got to save mom and pop. Well, that's a valid concern.
Nobody wants the
No, I mean, I have a household well and I had to redo it and they would probably claim, well, your well went dry. Well, no, my well was 25, 30 years old and it was a small well and had cheap parts in it. And so I had to redo the well. So no, it didn't go dry. In fact, our own Run D said in 2070, the mom and pop wells, not due to using the aquifer, bear in mind, but due to loss of hydraulic pressure. And this is really important that the mom and pop wells were only going to drop by 25 feet. Well, so envision the mom and pop well at 200 to 300 feet deep. Okay. And next thing, and they've got 60, 80, 100 feet. They got 100 feet of water because the pressure is bringing the water up in the water line. Well, it's just going to drop 25 feet. And by the way, they still got another 100 feet. That's 2070. Somebody want to call me then and tell me we're about to run out of water? I don't think so.
So this is the story that it's maybe emerged from Lone Star and the River Authority recently. I don't hear them saying as much about we're going to run out of water like they used to. I think maybe people like you and Mayor of Conroe, former Mayor Conroe Webb Elder called them out on it, and they seem to have changed their tune a little bit to, well, it's artesian pressure now. It's the water level in the wells are falling, not the aquifer. What does that mean, Mike? What's the difference between artesian pressure and water level in the aquifers? And maybe we'll table that until after the break. We are live here in Montgomery County talking about groundwater issues and Lone Star groundwater, an upcoming election where for the first time on November the 6th, people in Montgomery County get to go vote and take control of their water for the first time ever. We will be right back.
An estimated 1 in 10 births will result in a neonatal intensive care stay, also known as the NICU. Overnight, a family can find themselves and their newborn baby in a critical situation. The Mila Foundation financially and spiritually assists families in need. If you would like to volunteer or become a monthly sponsor, please visit us at www.themilafoundation.org. Again, that's www.themilafoundation.org, because every life matters.
Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's radio station with talk, music, weather, and traffic for Montgomery County. Have a question, comment about one of our shows? Want to know how to reach a host? Just contact the station on irlonestar.com or call in and leave a message at 936-647-3776. Get involved with your community with Lone Star Community Radio.
Is there someone you know who is hooked on vintage aircraft? Follow the Commemorative Air Force and its fleet of World War II planes, including the mighty B-17 Flying Fortress Texas Raiders, which is based in Conroe, Texas. Texas Raiders tours locally and all around the United States, offering the public a chance to put their hands on aviation history. What could be a more perfect gift than a flight on a historic B-17? Taking to the sky on the iconic bomber is an experience that will never be forgotten. For the touring schedule, reservations, or more information, go to b17texasraiders.org or call 855-FLY-A-B-17.
We are back live here in Montgomery County with Restore Affordable Water, talking about water issues in Montgomery County. As a reminder, you can go to our website, www.restoreaffordablewater.com, or like us on Facebook. Our goal is to reduce people's water bill in Montgomery County. It's plain and simple. There's an election coming up in November the 6th, the general election. And you, the people of Montgomery County, get to vote in 7 board members on the Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District. So it's up to you. So we were talking about 64,000 acre foot magic number and reverse engineering and conflicts of interest with Lone Star and the River Authority, and my eyeballs are spinning here. But I wonder about everyone else around us. Liberty County, Walker County, Waller County. What are they doing? And maybe we need to talk about the aquifer. Does the aquifer stop at the county line?
Not at all. Not even close.
The aquifer is a regional structure.
Yes.
That covers multiple counties.
The Gulf Coast Aquifer system actually goes from into Louisiana, past Louisiana, all the way down to Laredo. And it's kind of separated into pieces with some hydraulic divides or hydrologic divides. And the portion that we're dealing with is 20-something counties, I think.
Okay. All right. And so in the aquifer, in our aquifer, Montgomery County has a magic pumping limit of 64,000 acre feet. What's Waller County's pumping limit?
They don't have a pumping limit per se. There is no set limit.
No pumping limit. How about Liberty County? They have a pumping limit?
Liberty County has no regulatory entity at all. So there's absolutely no pumping limit in Liberty County.
They can pump as much as they want.
That's correct.
How about Grimes County? Any pumping limits there?
The same. There's a district and they have rules, but there is no hard and fast limit.
So Montgomery County is limited to 64,000 acre feet in the aquifer, but is anyone else under a pumping limit in the aquifer?
There are some regulatory things called MAGs that are targets that other districts have, but there's never been a district that said this is our pumping amount and we're going to cut you back to this amount. I mean, there was actually more than 64,000 acre feet being pumped up until the 2016 when the reduction happened.
Okay.
And so that's never happened in another groundwater conservation district.
So Montgomery County has essentially limited its pumping, and the neighboring counties haven't. I think Harris County is going through some groundwater to surface water conversions, but they don't have a pumping limit. They pump about 300,000 acre feet. So would it be fair to say that the neighboring counties are benefiting from on the backs of the people in Montgomery County? Is that a fair way to say it?
I think I think that's one way to look at it. There's an example that I worked on. There was a Jasper aquifer well, which is the lowest part of the Gulf Coast aquifer.
The
deepest part. And this well was put in just about a half a mile, if that far, from the county line into Harris County, where there's a subsidence district but no groundwater conservation district.
Okay.
And so while there was a reduction in the allowable pumping in Montgomery County, they're increasing the allowable pumping in the Jasper in Harris County. And this is a half mile away. In fact, if you do the hydrology or the hydraulics on it, the pressure decline due to that well pumping in Harris County reaches well on up into the woodlands.
So people in neighboring counties, they drill a well up on the county line. They can in fact take water from Montgomery County and not be under some type of pumping restriction.
That's correct. When you lower the hydrostatic head, water moves toward that pressure low, and so it will turn and move toward that pressure low wherever it is. And so if it's across the county line, it'll move across the county line.
So Mike, when you hear stuff like that your customers are paying out the nose to the Lone Star and the San Jacinto River Authority, conflicts of interest and all that stuff, but there's a whole nother group of people that are also benefiting from that really didn't have anything to do with it. People in neighboring counties, they're not paying anything.
Oh, they're not paying anything. Not only are they not paying anything, we are being sacrificial lambs for their benefit. Just think about it. I mean, the aquifer does not recognize political boundaries. If you want to believe in God or not, whoever created all this, he didn't say, oh, by the way, let's look, they're going to have a political boundary here one day, so let's just make that aquifer there. Well, no. Did it across wide regions, however it got here. We can have that argument another day. But bottom line is that people in all these other regions and these groundwater conservation districts are all for us having this surface water conversion. Because the bottom line is they know that no matter their worst position is, we are no longer using as much groundwater as we were. That means there's more for them. It's a basic human greed thing.
So they're benefiting.
Well, yeah, back to that 7 deadly sins. Here we go again,
All comes back to that.
No, it always does. It's humans. We manage to get ourselves in all kinds of fixes. And so every month when you're paying that bill, your cousin or your brother or your friend that lives over in Waller County ought to be calling you saying, man, I certainly appreciate you paying that $80 for all of us, or that $150 for all of us. I'm not paying anything, by the way. So they'll just rub it in your eye. I
believe Waller's about 6 or 7 cents per 1,000 gallons. It's been a little while since I've checked. 6 or 7 cents, and we're here in Montgomery County, depending on
groundwater district,
280. River Authority and Lone Star 280 or 260, something like that. Wow.
Yeah, no, they don't mind at all. Just build that pipeline. Keep those bureaucrats going.
I would think that you're a real estate developer. I would think that might want to develop in Waller County and Liberty County and not might drive some development out of this area.
Well, there is no doubt when as time goes by and as the demographics get closer to that county line, and there are some instances already where, by the way, you do that. You go right across the county line, and why would you develop something that costs somebody $750 a month, so to speak, for their land and their water versus $500 right next door? Those folks that drive a few miles to get that $250 a month, especially those who really cannot afford this.
This touches everything. This touches economics. Everyone says water's life. I believe water's life, but it's going to hurt Montgomery County. It's going to hurt the development of Montgomery County.
Well, it does. It does already hurt a little bit, but I'll tell you who else it hurts. It hurts those folks who are on disability income. It helps the working poor. It hurts them a lot. You're down here. Believe me, the last thing I am is some kind of social liberal. Okay. But I got to tell you, it is a problem. It's a problem for, just think about all those folks who make $12 to $15, $18 an hour, and they're trying to get by. And it's an extra $100 a month, or those who are on disability income or who are retired and on fixed income. That money actually matters to them.
Yeah.
That's the difference between getting to go visit their grandkids somewhere or having to stay home for the weekend. And so that really does matter. And that's the people, the working poor, and those who are, again, on disability or retired on fixed income. They hurt them very disproportionate. I can pay my water bill. I'll be happy to pay my water bill. But I just don't think it's fair that for the benefit of some bureaucracies and for the benefit of a chosen few capitalists out there, convenient capitalists, I might add, that they end up scraping enough off the system here, feeding it to hog trough, that and they do it at the expense of all these other people.
Yeah, that's I think that's an important point, that those of you that are frustrated with your water bill and you're making decisions based on maybe how much medicine you're going to buy this month or going on a trip, your vote matters in November. You get to come out in November and say you've had enough. If you like your water bill the way it is now, then you can vote for some of Lone Star's and River Authority's people. But I think there's going to be a group of people out there that will announce their candidates soon that have said that's enough. We've had enough of this. We want to protect the aquifer. We care about Montgomery County. We're not beholden to any special interest groups. It's not that anybody wants to destroy the aquifer. I've never heard anybody say we want to destroy the aquifer. That seems to be one of the battle cries maybe from Lone Star and the SJRA. I guess they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, and they start crying foul and trying to scare people. Mike, what do you think would happen if we pumped 200,000 acre feet a year in Montgomery County, which is about 5 times 64,000 acre feet? Would we be okay?
I don't know. I really don't know. It would depend on the distribution of where it's pumped. And in the south part of the county, there are some very southern part of the county. There's a little bit of subsidence that we'd need to look at. We'd need to look at the economics of it to see if it's really a problem or not.
If it's in the deep Jasper aquifer, no subsidence in the deep Jasper aquifer?
There's been no proven subsidence in the deep Jasper aquifer. The models show no subsidence in the deep Jasper aquifer. So you could pump more from the Jasper. Now, the reason I don't know how much to say you can pump is because it is an economic issue.
Okay. Well, that's an easier decision to make from the water providers. And maybe one day, 100 years from now, 70 years from now, we might want to go to the River Authority and say, we might be interested in buying some water from you guys, but we don't want to ram down our throat like this.
And we want it to be cost effective. Remember peak oil? We were all about to run out of oil. Man, we better switch around real quick. Well, guess what? Peak oil, and now we're awash in oil. Just imagine what technology and capitalism will do for you on the water issue.
Well, I think we've heard all the good stuff here. Go to our website, Restore Affordable Water. Like us on Facebook. We will be back next month live with Restore Affordable Water.